Perfect.
Good evening.
Evening, guys. Hi, everyone.
Evening,
Welcome
evening.
to Slayers Hot Sauce.
Hello, everybody.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Should we just kick off?
Yes,
Yes,
please.
Jem. Over to you. You're the host.
Over to you, my lovely. Take it away.
Cool. Right. Good evening, everybody. My name is Jem. I will shortly introduce the panel and let everybody introduce themselves. But we all know why we're here this evening. We're here to discuss an issue that I think is to everybody's hearts at the moment and fresh on everybody's minds, and that relates to kind of violence towards women and females. Obviously, there are some stories both nationally and in the news at the moment, and we as a group have made a decision that whilst we're not going to kind of go into any details with regard to cases that are still under investigation and are still very fresh for the love of those individuals, we will mention people's names as a way of just kind of paying our respects to those people. If you're somebody out there who has recently or not so recently experienced the tragic loss of a loved one, particularly in a way that was cruel and violent at the hands of a male who couldn't take no for an answer, or because of domestic violence, we also just take this moment of silence to commemorate them. I'm going to now invite the panel to introduce themselves. As I said, my name is Jem. I am an educational leader. I'm also a mental health first aider, and I'm also an author. This is an issue that's close to my heart just because I think that more than ever, as a person that is part of teaching young people not just English, but actually about joining the world, joining society, I'm always staggered when I see what the expectations that they have of themselves and each other are. And I feel really passionate that we need to take this time to really work with our young people in order to educate them and ensure that this situation that we know is on the rise is something that we deal with. Marsha, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Marsha, also known as Pon the Road. I am a mother, a survivor of domestic abuse, and all-round person that has good vibes and just wishes that information could be shared amongst women where they need to go, the help they can receive, and just know that you're not alone out there, and that basically there are places for you to get help and there is support. So this is why I'm here today, and thank you for having me.
My name is Craig. I'm also known as Mr. Positive. I'm a web developer, a motivational speaker, a mental health advocate, podcaster, and a few other things as well. But I'm really here to just really help people kind of gain a bit of self-awareness, especially as a man, especially in this particular situation, and see how it can help.
I'm Roy McEwen. I'm an entrepreneur as well as a coach, and I mentor men and young boys. And I'm looking forward to having a really open, honest, integrity-filled conversation tonight.
Hey, everyone. I'm Nai, and I am the director of Carnival Slayers and a Jackie of all trades. I've also worked in the industry of health and social care and mental health.
Hi, I'm Edie. I'm a mental health professional. I also have a platform called Her Amiable Tears, where I speak about abuse, especially child sexual abuse and healing and the journey and, how to get there. Sort of became a voice for younger women. So you could just speak out really and own your story. So yeah, I'm here today to discuss it, and hopefully I'm interested in my view sort of changing it as well, because I kind of feel like I'm slightly bitter, if that makes sense. So yeah.
And my name's Emma, I'm also known as Dominican Ems. I am an accounting professional. Even though I'm only 21, I've been doing this for like 20 years, in accounting, senior accounting. And I started years ago. I'm also the director of Beldier Mars. So aside of accounting, I also have my own carnival section, and I'm always representing people, and that's what I'm talking about. In terms of gender-based violence, if you're around me, you'll know what my views are. As a woman in the industry and just in general, I've had so many experiences. I'm really, really keen to interact with everybody today and get their points of view and their experiences also.
My name is Amanda, or some people know me as the name Cherokee. I am a union representative. I also have a band in Grenada, and I'm a concerned Black woman. I know too many persons that have been affected by domestic violence, by sexual abuse, and I'm just a concerned citizen. So that's
Great.
me.
So to kick off, I'm going to state the obvious. We come together as a Caribbean community, and we know that we have people all over the globe, but we know that we're united by MAS, we're united by SOCA, and we are part of a community that, on the one hand, we do love to mind each other's business, and when one of us bleeds, we all bleed. When people last week were looking for Mia Marcano, we were all in some way trying to raise awareness if we weren't there. We were trying to uplift the loved ones. We had it on our minds every day, not because we knew her, but because she was someone like us. She was someone who could have been us, could have been one of our children, and we all were praying for a really, really different ending. Without going into that situation, we also want to think about Denise Simmons, and I know that there are some people in this chat who knew Denise, and again, another victim of losing her life way too soon, because the person, well, there was somebody that basically caused her harm, you know, when she wanted to get on with her life without that person. And so I think today it's really important that we have a discussion that is sensitive, but that is honest and open, as we're thinking about how do we move forward from this. How do we make a situation so these are not just hashtags, or these are not just people who we kind of say, oh, it's so sad. How do we move forward in a way that we can at least find some forum and some action plan that these things can be prevented? So I'm going to start by just asking the question about what we think the key issues are. What are the triggers? What are the warning signs that lead to a situation where a female is having to reject a male? Because I know for me, when I hear about a person being rejected more than once, that's an alarm bell in itself. Because for me, it shouldn't have to be a situation where a female is rejecting a man, because a man should, in my opinion, be looking to get to know someone and talk to them, and being able to read signs where a person is not interested. So it's not that it would get to the point where a female would have to reject them. I don't know what people's thoughts are about that.
I can go first. For me personally, it's the step before. There's like a normalization of some of these behaviours, unfortunately. But there's a normalization. There was a post I saw the other day where you just check on your female friend, have you got home? Oh my God, I haven't heard from Jem. Has she got home? Because there's a knowing in all of our heads that from, I don't know what age, as a little girl to you're a 99-year-old woman, we as women do not feel safe. And that it's not just the strangers, it's the people you know. And I know we'll touch on that in more detail. But it goes even before that. There's like a normalization of language and behaviours that we all experience that lead up to this situation.
I would definitely agree. I mean, I recently went to a FET, and I was sitting down minding my own business, and I was at that FET by myself. Actually, there were people that I knew who were there, but I was there by myself. And near the end of the FET, this guy who had spent quite a a lot of the event talking to another female that I know, or tried to talk to, came up to me and he basically started talking to me, and I was kind of looking past him, and he then said to me, do you have a man? And I said, no. He said, you're a lesbian? I said, no. You're like a woman? I was like, that's a lesbian, but no. And the guy asked me every question under the sun except for, are you interested in me? And I was feeling quite uncomfortable, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, this guy who I've never met literally swooped in and was like, hi babe, should we go? And we walked off, and I said to him, thank you so much. And he said, I could see you needed my help. And that was it. That was the interaction. And I think we spend so much time talking about lots of different things, but it is really a case now where we do need to be policing each other. We do need to be supporting each other in a way that's not just about hashtag, but actually about that person needs help. Like, shall I go and check on them?
Yeah. And accountability. That's what's missing.
Yeah, I've had a similar situation where I've been out and someone is talking to me, and it's not even a case of body language or subtle hints. It's like, okay, I'm not really interested, thank you, but okay. And then you move on, and then you turn around, he's behind you again, and then you think, okay, look, you move on, and he's behind you again. You've been followed around the whole set, and it's really unnerving. And someone had to step in, unknown to me, don't know who he was. He just stepped in and was like, same thing as you, Jem, said, I could see you needed help. And
Marsha, can I interject? That's not a one-off occurrence. You've had that before, haven't you?
Many times, many.
I'm not saying it's okay. That's the issue, isn't it? It's almost a horrible normalization of something. You don't accept it. I don't like it. I feel physically scared because I don't know you or what you can do.
Exactly.
I've seen this language. I've seen this behaviour before.
I feel like that's happened.
Really like that.
Yeah, I feel like that's happened to me quite a few times, whether it be fets or be out. And I feel like as a woman, I almost have to lie, because saying I have a boyfriend isn't good enough. And, you know, it's like, oh, so you can't have friends. And I can, but I don't want to be your friend. And then, like,
She's
they
so
still get angry. I just.
No, it's true though. Even if you don't,
She's like your friend. She's like, yeah,
like, I've got a man, so we can still be friends.
So,
Okay,
like, it's literally
friends.
It's almost like they're entitled. Like, you have to do it. Like, they
Yes.
genuinely feel angry that you don't want to give your number. And more time, my face is a certain way. I don't really even want to talk to you, but I'm trying to be nice. It's so hard. Like, you even have to try and be nice so they don't get too offended. But it's ridiculous.
To be honest, I experience stuff like this all the time with watching women in an uncomfortable situation, kind of having to gauge the man and another woman's body language. Just finally tell the guy, like, yeah, she's not really interested, so just let her dance alone or be alone, especially in the recent fets when it gets too packed, etc. To be honest, for women, I'll definitely say it's extremely hard for you guys. There is constant campaigns, conversations, private conversations, tips and tricks, ways that you can walk around and move around and dress. And the list, I don't think you guys can even fill up a book that's long enough for you to even ever be safe or safe enough in this time. And what do you do to tell your daughter or tell your niece? It's getting kind of ridiculous. And more so, the reason why we even wanted to be part of this conversation is because it's not enough for women to have this conversation in private, because that's not the origin of the problem. The origin of the problem are the men, and the lack of self-awareness. And weirdly enough, for all the women that kind of listen or to watch, or you guys who experienced it, it's actually not personal. The men don't do it personally to women. It's actually something that they have already programmed in them before they even end up at the fet. Before they even see you, before they see the opportunity, they already have the mentality they carried with them before you've done anything. So no matter how prepared you would be, they would already know what they want to do or how they would perceive or how to react. So the reality is, again, back to something that I like to say to people, it's about self-awareness, and not women's self-awareness, because I think that Women are very aware of what they have to do and what they have to, how they survive and get around. You've not been doing it for years, especially unfortunately in our scene. But it's a lot about men and what are they what are you aiming for? What is your kind of your agenda? What is your intention in the first place? Why is it that you have to pursue so hard? Why is it that you can't hear no? Or why is it that you have to get the dance, etc.? There's a lot around what men can do, and I don't want to take the typical stance of basically attacking. I think we always do the attack, and it's obviously super hard to not attack it at this point for against men, but it doesn't seem to work. It's more about men just asking themselves, what exactly are you doing? Why are you here? What does it mean when, how do you necessarily respect women? How would you see it if it was your daughter, your niece, your cousin, your mother? Some mothers, you know, they aren't always with them. They're the first person they were with, they will end up going out again. Would you like to be the man that's on the other side of that she meets? There's a lot of things around that. So that's my part to it, is that there are a lot of conversations that women have in person, but in private and in person and in public, and not enough men are getting involved to kind of say how other men should be acting. And I've never actually gone to an experience where I ever have to be overly rejected. If I ask for a dance and they don't give the dance, that's like my life goes on. And just, I just don't know. People just, I don't know. A lot of men just don't like it. It's good. Again, Edie said it's entitlement. It's literally to do with entitlement and them having the agenda before they enter or ever see you, that they think that they can get what they want. And that really is something that needs to change from the get-go.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. I think that word entitlement is key here, and ego also, because I think we unfortunately have this history of explaining things away.
Yeah.
We have a history of sweeping things under the rug, you know, that dodgy uncle who, you know, everybody has in their family, who you don't really want to leave your kids by, and it's like, oh, dress properly because he's coming into the house. No, he's not coming into the house. Like, and we do need to get to that point, don't we, where actually, rather than this secret thing, we're embarrassed because we've got this guy in the house. It should be actually, he should be embarrassed and he should be policed and he should be taken into account. Yeah. Because ultimately, if he's not, it will just continue. And, you know, I don't know if and when we will get to that point, but it feels like we're at this point. You know, obviously I think most of us are based in the UK, and, you know, there was an article that Farron X, who's kind of like a British vigilante almost, who is trying to get like youth violence kind of to go down in London. And he was talking about like policing the streets, because there was an article that came out in The Guardian this week or last week that talked about the fact that since Sarah Everard's murder, there's been another 81 murders of women by males in the UK. Now, obviously, that's just the UK. But again, not all of these victims are white females. Not all of these victims.
That's what's been reported.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, and when we look at like the publicizing of it, even if we go back to this issue about Mia Markana, the point is, would we even know her name if her family hadn't pushed so hard to try and find her? Yeah. Because I know for myself, and I'm sorry to mention Denise and Mia again, it's because those are two females that are on my mind. I know that there are many other people who, for whatever reason, unfortunately, their names aren't out there and they've got loved ones that are hurting. But why is it that we end up having to do these things for ourselves? We end up having to raise this alarm around, you know, a particular profile of people. Yeah. And how do we get to the point again where we are working to ensure that people know these people's names and know what happened to them and are putting things in place to stop them from happening to other people?
I've got a question. As on top of what you said, in my situation, because we all cried for her, that was somebody that was known to her. In Denise's case, this is somebody that was known to her. I haven't got the statistics to hand, so I'm not as organised as I should be, but a lot of these people aren't strangers to us. So I think there's like a level of complexity where they're not, you know, the boogeyman down the street. They're not, you know, that random faraway stranger that's like, you know, the boogie killer. There's somebody that you know is even an acquaintance, a friend, a family member. There's some of these people in trusted positions in your life as well. So there's like a level of grey where there's like you don't want to stir. You don't want to make people uncomfortable, even though they're violating you in terms of your emotions, in terms of proximity, in terms of like your physical being. They're violating you. You don't want to rock the boat, and these are learned behaviours.
Yeah.
Many of us have, male and female. So there's like a level of grey where that's how some people get away with what they're doing, and the perpetrators don't always get. They're not always accountable, because it's not easy to go and tell your friend that her boyfriend's doing that, or the uncle is doing that, or that person that's your good friend, that's been your friend for 10 years, is now doing this weird thing that you know, there's like all this grey. It's really uncomfortable. I know we'll touch on it later, but I think that's embedded in part of the problem, that not all of these people are strangers to us, unfortunately, or people that we know. It's really bad.
Yeah.
I'm literally scared sometimes. Like I'm scared to go down the street.
Can I say something as well? I think as well, part of the problem is some things are brushed under the carpet, especially in, I'd say, well, I can only speak for myself, but the Caribbean community, and children grow up hearing these things, you know, male or female, and then I think it just spirals out of control. Like, what do you say? What don't you say? What will be taken seriously? What won't be taken seriously? You know, what should you see as alarming? What shouldn't you? Because I feel like we've grown up with so much sort of, whether it be chaos or toxic things around us, it comes to things like this where people are actually dying and you almost feel stuck. And you're really questioning, why is it happening? But it starts from somewhere.
Yeah.
I would completely agree with that. I actually had a student today in a lesson, and she was talking to her friend. I was trying to get them to do an essay, and they weren't doing the essay. So I went over and I was like, what are you two talking about? She's like, oh, miss, this cute guy followed me home yesterday. I'm like, sorry? It's like, yeah, miss, like, I met him outside of the school gates and he asked for my snap, right? So I'm like, I'm not giving you my snap. So anyway, I walked home. When I turned around, my man was outside my house. I was like, sorry. So a complete stranger followed you home after you told him he couldn't have your snap, and you're now talking about him because you then gave him the snap. She's like, yeah. And I was like, and it's exactly what you're saying, Edie. It's about this idea that actually there are so many blurred lines around consent nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And depending on what people's lived experiences are, they can be flattered by the most alarming red flag.
Yeah.
And I said to her, and you know, maybe I went too far, I said to her, so first it starts with, no, you can't have my snap. I said, then you guys get into a relationship, and when you're old enough to have sex, you had sex last night and he wants it tonight, so he's taking it even if you say no. And then, you know, before you know it, he's choking you, because they talk about it in music and people talk about, actually, no man should ever choke any woman without asking. I don't care which females like to be choked. To me, no, I'm sorry. Because talk about these things. It doesn't matter if you like to be choked. The point is, did he ask before he put his hands around your neck?
No, I'm gonna
wait, one second. Just 1 second. I hear what you're saying, but you're caught up in the moment, you know. So let's just say
some of these kids go too far.
It just kind of happened.
I'd like to say there's no choking.
I'm just
Lord help us.
Look, my daughter went to a fete not so long ago, yeah, and it wasn't the normal type of fete, but anyhow, people that don't normally go to that scene were there, and she was dancing, and she said this boy came up and was dancing behind her. She goes, Mum, out of nowhere, he tried to put his hand on my neck and choke me. That's it. My daughter's very vocal, thank God. She literally just boxed his hand away. It's like, why I do? Like, oh, what that? Like, what kind of way you been watching and you want to come into the flat and be doing them things that choke? My daughter's mouth, she don't have no cover. I sometimes fear for her because I know how vocal she is, and she will stand up for herself. And there's some boys out there, men out there, that they won't have that because their ego is hurt, or you know what I mean, or they feel embarrassed in front of their friends.
She shouldn't have to do that, Marsha.
Exactly.
And what did that? Can I be honest? What did that feel like for you as a mother when you heard that?
For me, my heart's beating because I know for a fact in that situation, okay, she cussed him off and he went about his business. But a next guy wants to come box her down on all sorts of things. And that's the scary part for me. The fact that as a woman, you can't even say, no, I'm not interested, or stop doing that. You have to fear that you're going to get the retaliation you're going to get back.
This is it.
And you know, you can't just be open and free and express yourself how you want to and say, like, either no, don't do that. You've got to walk on eggshells, go around the corner, come back around again. It's all kinds of excuse just to get through to some of these people that, no, I don't want to talk to you, or no, I don't want to give you my number, or no, I don't want to dance with you. You know.
And to add to your point, a man that was shaped like a potato, when I rejected him, he said that I wasn't attractive, and he was shaped like a dashing.
Oh my God.
No, I'm laughing, but it's not funny. Wasn't it like God rest the lady's soul? Wasn't it New York Labor Day Carnival, and the girl lost her life when she said no to the guy? So you've got Mr. Dashin and you've got people like that. And like, how do you know how people are going to react? Because my mouth is sarcastic, but I'm nice. But I'm doing it from a place of like fair, because I don't want you to talk to me and touch me. I want you to leave me alone, and I don't know how to talk.
This is it.
But how do I know how you're going to react? That's really scary.
This
and
is
he was shaped like a Dashin, honestly.
And I was going to say that is really the scariest point, is you don't know how people are going to react, because you could be as polite as possible. And as you said, walking on eggshells, and they're just going to just switch and do something really stupid or be overly persistent. I was in an incident 20 years ago where a friend of mine was the one getting chirped, and I was with her at the time, and we got into my car. We were about to drive off, and the guy was proper insisting that she should give him her number. And she was like, look, I'm not interested. So I've got a boyfriend, go away kind of thing. And his friend was harassing me. And he got the message, but this guy who was harassing her did not get the message. And in the end, he just attacked us. He literally threw something in my car. And I switched and I boxed him.
Good for you.
Only, no, that's the problem, because at that time, as I said, it was over 20 years. It was about 20 years ago. My mentality at the time was, later, you're not going to do that. You're not going to disrespect me and my friend. I boxed him. I saw reds. Because when I see red, that's it. I switch. And I boxed him, but he boxed me back. Because I was delusional, thinking, if I box him, that's that, innit? You know, talk done. Because he ain't gonna hit a woman. But I'm forgetting that, or actually we live in a climate, an environment where the men of our generation, unfortunately, don't see it that way. You know, they're like, well, you box me, I'm boxing you back. Which is why I've always said, even to my bonus daughter, and I will say to my daughter, and I'll say to friends, family, female family members, if you're gonna box a man, just get ready, innit? He's gonna box you back. There's none of this boxing a man or slapping a man and that's that. He will slap you back.
But do you think
the best thing to do? Just don't put your hands on anyone.
So that guy from the Migos, isn't it?
What was that, Cherokee?
Oh, sorry, Dominica. There was the guy from the Migos. That happened with him and his girlfriend. What's his name?
Sweetie and Quavo.
That's the one.
Oh yeah.
That happened, and that picture went viral, and that was unfortunate. Yeah.
But isn't it interesting in that some of the stories we've heard this evening have got both men who were raised properly, who came to the aid of women, and men who weren't raised properly and who have an impression that they've developed however they've developed it, but essentially feel that it's okay
Mm.
And I think, I can't remember who said it, but that's the behavior, isn't it? That has to be addressed. Where is this behavior being learned from?
Yeah.
And it breaks my heart to say this, but a lot of this behavior is transferable behavior that's learned from home, right?
Yeah.
As difficult as it is to say this, because I know a lot of parents work hard and go through a lot to get their kids, but all you have to do is look on Facebook. I've got a friend who's on Facebook. She's got some kids, and she swears at them. But that's her culture. It's normal for her to swear at them, push them on camera, violence, the swearing's abuse. And then we expect these kids to behave rationally when they come outside and interact with other people. Now, I mean, I'm drinking from this mug. This is my favorite mug. My son bought me this mug, right? And I love the fact that I've really just spoken to my son since he was actually, when my wife said I'm pregnant, I started speaking to the fetus, right? And I started explaining to this young man his journey through life, right? And explaining to him that he's going to be great, he's going to be an amazing guy. And now my son, I look at him, I said to him on his last birthday, I'm so proud of you. If I wasn't your dad, I'd want to be your friend, right? Because I truly, he's handsome, he's great, he's well-mannered and that. So we've got to bring this back to the home. What are some of these kids learning in these homes? And why do young men, because the problem seems to be getting worse. I remember going to Coquillet, Swiss Cottage. We were jam-packed in this place. You never heard anybody complain about, oh, don't touch me, all of that madness that we see now. And all of a sudden now, we have this situation where I went to someone's aid and I got chucked, right? What? This person was violent to me because he felt I had no place to intervene. In my mass camp one year, this guy was, I don't know what he saw in this girl. If you saw her, you knew she was a teenager and not 19. You knew she was 13 or 14. And he's talking to her. I just intervened and said, leave my daughter alone, right? So you've got this thing where I think we have to be open about what the hell is going on in some families. And what influences some of these young men are taking away. And we also have to be open, and I like this forum here this evening, and I would say to all women, speak up. Just speak up, because there is no silver bullet to solve this problem. Because if you look worldwide, I mean, we're kind of fortunate. I'm not saying we're good, but there's some cultures out there that's horrid. Right? I mean, in India, girls got gang raped, the girl was killed, and the men walk away, and the law practically allowed that. It's insane. So it's a case where we've got to find a way through this, and we've got to be very vocal, both men and women. And we shouldn't ostracize the guys who've been brought up well, but we should absolutely point out the ones who have been complete and utter idiots. They should be pointed out. DJs have a role in FET and in bands. I remember back in the day, I'm going to sound like an old fogey now, Smokey would get on, and if he will get on the mic, and if someone's behaving stupid, it would be like, you're out. Yeah, you're out, right? In parties that I've promoted, there's some bad boys who want to come in there, get out, you know? In my band, I have security, you want to behave stupid, out. So I think we've got to be honest about this, and there is an element that contained this behavior, But there's also a very sizable majority of us who don't entertain this behavior whatsoever. And I think more of us needs to not entertain this behavior.
Yeah. Roy, I said so many things that we need to unpack, and I think, you know, there's a lot of value in a lot of the things that you've said. I, for myself, wanted to talk about this issue of speaking up, because I think it's one of those things that we say a lot, oh, you got to speak up, but to who? Because, and I'm putting this to the group, because ultimately I know where I have been harassed and I have called the police. I've basically been told, I mean, it's not their exact wording, but it was kind of like, well, wait till something actually happens to you and then we'll do something. So for me, while we talk about, you know, what can we do ourselves? Like who are the people that, so for example, if something is happening to you, if you are being harassed by a colleague, who should you go to? And if nothing happens, then what? How do we make it so it's not a problem? So for example, I have an issue with someone at work. I have an issue with the IT guy at work. Okay, so
I'm an IT guy.
This man has actually smacked my bottom.
Oh wow! Okay. No, I don't do that.
At a work event. And then one morning I was on my remote access at like 3 o'clock in the morning in the school system, and I noticed my mouse moving across the screen. And I actually went to my employer and said, look, I suspect something's going on with this. And when they investigated, they found that this guy was watching what I was doing on my computer. No. This guy still works there because basically they offered me a mediation. Now, at the time, I was kind of pissed off. But actually, following more recent events, I'm thinking to myself, but hold on a minute. Am I really safe? I was made to feel I was overreacting for thinking, actually, this guy, he's kind of got an unhealthy obsession with me. But more and more I'm thinking, I go to work every single day. This man who has the access to the CCTV, this man who has access to my emails, who has access to my address. And actually, how safe am I? And who do I go to? Because the police aren't willing to do anything.
I've got a point as well, Jem.
Yeah, go for it.
Again, I loved everything you said, Roy, and you, like Jem said, you touched on so many different issues. In fact, who do you tell? So I'm not going to name the person's name, but there's somebody on the Soka scene, as an example, that I've had to deal with. So I would say I'm the most shy, I'm the most confident shy person you ever know. Like you can't just come and talk to me. Like I'm not going to just let you get away with anything. But this person actually violates in terms of his proximity to me and in terms of what he says to me. It's very sexually like lewd. He lies in terms of saying things that I've said to him. I'm like, I know I didn't say any of those things to you. He actually makes me feel physically sick to the point when I saw him last about 3 months ago at an event, I just lost it and I started shouting. I must have looked like some crazy banshee because there's like a build-up of like stress and not wanting to rock the boat and like all these like years of just like, why doesn't he just leave me alone? And he will always make a point of beelining and coming to me, and I'm sure he does it to other people, and I know he does it to other people. But going back to what you said about who do you tell, I spoke to some people. I was like, yeah, X, this guy, like, he's a bit weird, isn't he? Like, oh, so and so said this, or so, but nobody does anything or says anything about him, and he just gets away with it. And then another friend was like, no, he would never do that. And I was like, but yeah, he does, and he makes me feel so uncomfortable because he's in my space. So it's like you can tell people, but because there's so much discomfort and not knowing the best way to be, people can be really nice, but they don't know how to take it to the next step to help you, or even.
But Emma, you see, this is what I'm talking about. You've sat here on this chat with some of the rest of us, and we have said we need to start calling it out. And on the other hand, you've said, I'm not going to mention this person's name because in your head, it's too extreme to do that.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the actions of these people are extreme. And this is the point, like, how do we get to a point where we feel confident enough to say, yeah, that boy there, this is his name, this is his Instagram.
Guys, can I can I
Oh,
very
hi.
quickly just say hello? I'm so
Hi,
sorry.
Alexis.
I'm late.
Hey, Alexis.
My apologies. I'm joining late. Hello, everybody. I just wanted to say, obviously, this may have already been said. I'm not sure. But for me, I think there's a lot of discussions about what women can do more of and how women can call out more things and how women can make sure we support each other and we look after each other. And that is all great. And I think that we've been doing that for a while. I think that, you know, rightly or wrongly, men need to do more.
Amen.
If there's anything else that women need to do, there is nothing else that women need to do. And the reason I say that there's nothing else that women need to do is because I don't think this is necessarily a forum where we all tell our stories as being assaulted in some way, because as women, I'm sure we all have in some way, shape or form. Whether we accept that we have been assaulted or not, we probably have been assaulted in some kind of way. But from a male perspective, it's about making sure that your response to women telling you things is not, yeah, but that's not all of us, you know. But I've got this person, I've got this man that wouldn't do that, and I've got a brother who's a pastor and he wouldn't think of doing that. That's great. We know about all the guys that wouldn't think of doing it. We're talking about the 99.9% of men that would do something. And I'm talking about actually realizing the width of this spectrum. Because the minute you share a meme in a group that laughs at R. Kelly's sexual assault, you're a problem.
Amen.
The minute you laugh at somebody talking lewdly about a woman, you're part of the problem.
Amen.
The minute, let's go to the complete other end. Rape, sexual assault, battery, all of those things, you're part of the problem. And I think what the issue is that there's too many men that feel like because they just make a bit of a lewd joke in a group chat, that they're not part of the problem. Or because
but it's the boys' culture, isn't it? It's the boys' club culture. It's all right. It's just boys' banter. It's not serious. I'll stop being sensitive. He was only joking. Stop overreacting. He didn't mean it like that.
And I'm glad you said that.
This sense of, well, I'm not like that. Even though my friend, my cousin, my butcher, my baker, my candlestick maker, they're all like that, but I'm not like that. It's almost as if that makes it okay. So for me, controversial, but I don't think women have anything else to do. I feel that men need to step up, have conversations, truthfully call out their male counterparts when they're doing certain levels of foolishness. And when women say things to them, don't make jokes about it. Don't ask, are you sure? And actually listen to what women are saying to you. And my last point, I'll probably speak again. My last point is that, just listen to listen and don't listen to respond. That's all I got for now.
Well said.
That's really good. To touch on, I think Jem and Alexis. So the part that Jem and Ems was saying was about the speak up. The part about work, to me, that's outrageous. I would assume, of course, that it's supposed to be like stuff like HR or at least the CEO is supposed to be able to take charge of it, for example. And once again, most companies are run by men. A lot of companies don't want the controversy. A lot of HR doesn't want the issue. Even harassment is always something that's done underneath. Okay, let's just not talk about it too loud, for example. And I find that is a major problem in itself, the fact of it. I understand why you wouldn't publicize things instantly, because there are cases where there are false cases as well. But again, the same as
that percentage, I'm so sorry, Craig. That percentage is so tiny.
Yeah, it's very small.
Exactly. That's exactly the case. Most of it is not false. Most of it is not false. I talked to Edie about this. I said there are cases it's false. Some things are not said, or women are using it in a bad way. But actually, most of the cases are not false. There's so many things that women don't say and don't want to say and keep hidden because it's embarrassing. It's almost embarrassing to them to be assaulted. They don't even feel like they feel like they did something wrong in a sense, and that's a terrible place to be. The speak up part, I don't know how we would change it in work. I guess HR is supposed to be there, and I guess every company is different, because I've had some companies that are super serious about stuff like that, and I've had some companies that are really blasé about it as well. So that's a bit of an in between. But I think in the sense of our scene, soca, carnival, dancehall, one of the things I think is very clear is about representation. Like, what do we see the most, hear the most, etc. And Alexis touched on it. We hear banter a lot. DJs calling out, making things about no stosh gal in the thing. I'm like, and when it's like summertime is coming, and you hear the call outs on the DJs, yeah, like when you're in your summer dress, then you know you have to be ready. That thing, why do you have to be ready? That doesn't make any sense. You're not putting out the right kind of message. No stoshgal, we know that's like in songs, etc. But again, it's not the fact that it's bad to be in songs, but all we hear is that in the songs. We don't hear the opposite. We don't hear the, oh, respect for your woman. We don't hear the when a woman does say no, what to do. We don't hear like the call outs in the thing like, hey, go and grab a gal and have a dance. But if she doesn't want to, then just let her go.
Exactly.
And I know it sounds super cheesy because obviously, of course, it goes against our normal culture, right? But it's necessary now. It's so bad now of where our culture is at and how people see it as well. It's not just our culture, of course. There's probably in other places as well.
It's gender races across the board.
Yeah, we have a responsibility as an entire scene to actually, instead of saying that we need to tell the DJs to change, maybe we start putting out more content which is in particular respecting women, saying how men are supposed to be acting. When there are advances that are made that the DJ called out, and then your advances get put down, it's okay. Go about your business. Go and get a drink and calm yourself down. Exactly. I think that's what probably needs to be put out. Once again, Alexis said it, and I said it before. It's not about women having to do even more. Like the list of things that you have to. I was saying to Evie, like, we eventually have a child and we have to tell our daughter what to do when you go out. Could you imagine the list of things that you have to say? Could you even take it off the top of your head?
Yes.
And even then, you may trip up with the wrong person.
Mm-hmm.
It's ridiculous, and it's not the origin of the problem. The origin of the problem is the way that men see themselves and the way that men see themselves in our culture as well. Because again, a lot of things, if they have to do it at work, they'll never do it at work. Maybe they would. Some men may do it at work, and then they think they'll get away with it, or they don't care about the risk. Barely a lot of men will not do it at work, but they will do it in the scene because they find there's more accessibility, etc. And I find there is a lot of I think there is a case that we can actually create a group or something that basically has representation of what men should be doing to respect women better in our own culture, and let it stem from there if that's what we can control. Even the fact that all of us are here makes me happy because there's a lot of us here that can already start to kind of have these conversations. And again, it's not necessarily about telling people not what you don't have to do and what we need to take away, but actually for them to simply hear and see the content about how they should be acting makes them at least start to begin to think about their actions, the way that they move around the world, the way they move around each other, and the way they respect other men and other women at the same time, and the way they respect themselves. It's actually a massive lack of respect for men, and that they just don't have self-control. That's the end of the game, is the fact that they don't have self-control. When they hear a no, they thought they were going to get something, they didn't get it. You don't always get stuff in your life, but for some reason you thought that if it's somebody's daughter, you can get it by force. So it's a lack of self-control in that sense. So I really think that's where we really need to start going. And we do have a group, well, we really have a group, the fact that everybody's here. And I think that's where we can possibly start in the sense of speaking up. Again, I would like it to be that we can speak up as much as possible. Maybe the group starts with the fact of the same group that represents and says what is right, or the same places that people can go to start to have conversations, or how to deal with things, or how to approach it properly, or work through. Did the scenario actually work out and was not in your favor? Has there been recurring cases? Is there something that we actually have to build a police report towards it? Because there's multiple people that said the same thing about the same person.
Craig and Roy, we've got two men on the chat, and both of you have touched on this idea around upbringing and understanding of these boundaries for males. Now, as I said, I work in a secondary school, and I work in a community where, unfortunately, there are a number of students who have been raised in a way where women don't have a say. So if you can imagine that playing out, me as a teacher, as an assistant head teacher, I'm trying to have a conversation with a young person who comes from a family where women don't have a say and black people aren't anything.
Absolutely.
And I then have a kid squaring up to me in my face. And I'm then meeting with that person's parent, and I'm explaining to that person's parent, I'm not interested in villainizing anybody's children. I'm not interested in criminalizing anybody's children. But actually, where are we going to direct these young people who do need this education? Because fair enough, we already have adults who need this education, but with regard to young people who are growing up and having these examples and genuinely do not know that these things are unacceptable, where should we be directing these young people to? Is it that we're looking to create these forums ourselves? And again, it sounds like a big task, it sounds far-fetched, but these are unprecedented times. You know, everybody's talking about COVID for some reason or other, but actually we have to keep in mind that there are people who've been forced to spend more time at home. They've been forced to behave in ways that you may not necessarily pick up because life is different now. And what are we going to do about the fact that we're acknowledging there is a problem? There are a lot of young people, there are a lot of people who are affected by this problem. The police aren't going to pick it up. Social services are not going to pick it up. Like, who is going to pick it up?
It's up to us. We've got a campaign. Unfortunately, there are the audience that we want to reach to change their behavior are not going to be watching this. Right? It's other people who want to bring change who are going to watch this. So we've got to start with them. We've got to start with them to make some noise about what we want. We have to campaign. Our society is so polarized in terms of the power structures within our society that to just try and do one thing is just not going to work. We have to do multiple things, unfortunately. And as we can get as angry as we want, that's just one part of it, and it will always be one part of it. We're supposed to be angry, supposed to be incensed, but then also we have to be motivated to get out there in people's faces and talk and explain and change attitudes. And it's not going to take one thing, it's going to take lots of different actions, because there's lots of different people who are engaged in this. There are a violent group of people who are not going to listen. Like I gave my experience, I was chucked, right? When I intervened. There are some violent people out there. They're not going to listen. So we have to find a way to deal with all the different groups of people. So like you talked about the DJs, we gotta make sure that we're speaking to these guys so that they, like the old guys used to do, stop the party. You know, this party's not going on unless people behave.
Yeah.
And then you've got the security in the party as well, who are just as bad as some of the guys who are in the party. So I think this is multifaceted, and I think we'll be kidding ourselves if we just try to do one thing. We have to do multiple things. And I think we're in an era where women's voices are being heard. We've had the Me Too movement. We've had lots of things. And I think I get the fatigue that women don't have to do anything else. I get that. I get it. But you know what? You've got to hit iron when it's hot. And if this is a moment when women's voices are being listened to, then it's the time. And this is my view. Please disagree if you wish, but it's my view.
Lex is better than
right? But disagree.
Yeah,
we have to use all the tools available at our disposal to tackle this issue.
And Roy, sorry to interrupt, but I'm going to say, yes, you have got the Me Too movement. We've got awareness of all of these issues to an extent. But I feel like we've got all of these things happening, but I feel like I'm not heard. And I'm vocal. I feel like I'm not heard. I feel like I'm still explaining to people, even this week, some of the red flags that I see as a female. We're specifically talking about gender-based violence and some of the things that we've experienced and people in our periphery of experience as well. I feel like we're not being heard and something needs to fundamentally change. And I like the focus on young people, but to build on both of what you said, Roy, and what you said earlier, Jem, whether you're 15 or whether you're 65, there's something that's happening generational, multi-ethnically, multi-racially. It's something that's so ingrained in the culture that we need to address it. And I liked what you said, Roy, because you have to come with like a multi-pronged attack. You're not just going to be able to teach like young people. What about the mum is having to just survive, and she's going to work, and she's just holding it together. And then, sorry to revert back to our friend Denise, you know, it's something that's touching many people's lives, and you would never know what they're going through.
Yeah.
It's that common, and it's that ingrained in so many people's experiences that we have a fundamental problem in our community that is reflective of society. And I've got to say, like, we don't want to make it personal to some respect, but every single one of us in this room has either been attacked, has been assaulted, has been, if not more, or they've had to stop an attack, or they've witnessed something. It's that common, it's normalised. But it's not okay, and it's normalised, but I don't accept it. And if I have a daughter tomorrow, I will kill all everything. I will kill it. Don't.
No, but I think it starts in our culture. It's generation after generation from, like you said, it doesn't matter if you're a young person or if you're in your 60s. If I look back at my grandparents and their generation and how they lived as husband and wife, many women were getting beaten up by their husband behind closed doors. But they never talk about it because what happened between husband and wife stay between husband and wife. And when they go out on the road, they're united front. You wouldn't know. She cover up your black eye with your makeup and all them things there. Women are taught not to talk. Women are taught not to say anything.
Yeah.
Men expect women not to do that. That's why they feel they have the entitlement. That's why they feel they can get away with doing these things. And I think it's the mindset of men has to change. It's a cultural and learned behavior.
And I think this is what I was
I
saying.
agree.
About, when you think about, when you think about change, it's like, for example, George Floyd was killed. It's not up to black people to dismantle racist structures. It is up to white people within racist structures to dismantle them. And I feel like similarly, it is not up to women to try and dismantle patriarchy and misogyny.
Amen.
It's up to men to turn to each other and say, not really sure this is how we should be moving, because it's 2021.
Yes, that's the light bulb that has to come on in their heads.
Yes.
I don't think we should be moving like this.
So, okay.
So Alexis,
can I add something? Sorry.
I point to Alexis. So to reiterate what Craig and what Roy were saying, do we think one of the actionable things, one of the things that we can physically do, guys calling out the guys in their circle, in their periphery to say? What do you think?
I think there needs to be these forums that we're talking about. I think they need to be male-led forums, people that identify as male-led forums, and they need to be speaking to other men. When there's foolishness happening in a party or foolishness happening wherever, men need to be speaking to other men and saying that's not all right. When we've got soca songs glamorizing rape, we need to say we're not singing that song on the road.
Playing it.
Or we're
Don't
not
play
doing
it.
that. And we've got to remember, I think, sorry, my last point, Cherokee, my bad, I'm coming 2 seconds.
No, it's okay.
I just think that my thing is that we really, just like how with the police system that we've seen recently talking about a few bad apples, it is not a couple of men. It is the majority. And when I say it's the majority, I mean it's like when white people say they're not racist because they have a black friend. It's exactly the same.
I'm the cultural mindset of men.
Misogynistic because I have a daughter, or I'm not misogynistic because I'm married and I'm nice to my wife. It's all about how it's the thinking. So this is why I said it's a spectrum in terms of from laughing at a meme about rape up to actually raping somebody is all part of that spectrum in terms of what needs to be fixed and a mindset shift that needs to happen.
Exactly. I agree with everything that everybody has said. Going on, first thing I wanted to touch on was where I think it was Roy that said women have a voice or people have been heard. Now, one thing that I read very clearly, and that rang out as loud as bells for me, and really alarmed me, was in Denise's case. So again, sorry to even mention her name, but it's extremely key. So Denise actually called the police, okay, and stated she didn't feel safe, but basically she raised the alarm with the police. The police have failed in the law. What they're supposed to have done is to send a vehicle to stay outside of our home. I'm not sure if many people know about the laws and so forth. That's why it's gone under review. So while everyone says women have voices, women don't have voices. I'm being honest. And we spoke about George Floyd, Breonna Taylor. Is her name Breonna Taylor? She was murdered. Nothing's happened to her. You know, nothing's happened. Me Too, to me, seemed to be. It seems, you know, it's a movement. However,
can I be honest, Cherokee? It's not Black women and Asian women.
This is what I was about to say.
Towards white women, I'm really sorry. I'm going to be very honest.
Yes.
It's not the likes of anybody in this room.
Precisely.
Our voices
and it was
aren't heard in the same way. But that is a vital movement, and I don't want to take away from it or discredit it, because I think it's needed. But we need something that's replicated by our peers, and something that is respectful and knowledgeable of our cultural perspectives and the way we go about things, whether you're African or Caribbean or if you're East Asian, something that's aware of it, because you cannot be Sally in I don't know, Stoke New, like wherever, and just bring that to us. That's not our experience. Yeah, sorry to
No, but I agree with you. I was about to say the same thing. It seems to be more targeted for white women, do you understand? And there was another thing as well. Craig was saying something else. There's a woman called Tanya Stevens. Tanya Stevens, she's a reggae singer.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if you guys have heard, she spoke out a few weeks ago about her experience from when she was a teenager. She was raped. Yeah, a very heartbreaking story where she was raped by a well-known Jamaican artist. She will not name that person. She was also gang raped a few years later by men that she knew, right? And she won't name the person. And that's another thing. Women, we don't have a voice. And the other thing I wanted to state as well, because part of training that I do is when it comes to like case law, when it comes to sexual offences and so forth. When women come forward and they report a crime, for example, a rape in this country and so forth, the information when you go to the police station, you go into a suite, etc., to actually get a conviction here in the UK, is high. You know, the criteria is very high. Firstly, consent doesn't even have a direct meaning. You know, like if you Google the name Cherokee, you would see a description of what Cherokee is. Dominican, Gem, you'd have a description. Consent doesn't have an actual description in the law here in the UK. Many women, and I think David Lammy had shared something a few months ago, where it stated that the courts in this country have kind of turned their back on rape cases, and so many are actually reported. So it's a very high threshold to actually get a conviction. Very serious things have to happen. And there is a case, and I wonder if you talk about it, but it might scare some people, and it's known in case law here in the UK. And it's a case where a woman was drugged, and so no date rape drug. And in this case, the woman, because she wasn't in her state of mind where she could say yes or no, the judge actually stated, because the time when the judge had interpreted when she was conscious, she should have said no then. She don't know. She's under some serious drugs, you understand? So again, when we say women have voices, we don't have. But what somebody else was stating here about breaking down, I forgot her name, that was here, she just gone. Just speaking about breaking down these, I call them the pillars, the courts, the police. Look at the advice the police was giving out recently, saying that women need to basically get a law degree basically, and women with law degrees are like, so I am now going to the bar, do I have to wear my gown and like pull out my my criminal law book and I mean, who's got time for that? If a policeman is stopping you, you believe he's a police with his ID badge, we're going to say, hold up, let me get my Blackstone's criminal law book.
As a black woman,
Just imagine.
Yeah.
So the definition, guys, of insanity is doing the same thing,
expecting a different result.
A different outcome, right? So we're at a place where we're establishing that we need to be doing things differently. Now, what we have been doing is talking for a long time about, how things are. And we've talked about ideas, but actually moving forward, how do we make these things happen, and how do we set ourselves a timeline? Because ultimately we do know that there are these people in this community. We also do probably all know someone. What is our next step going to be? Because for me, I'm thinking to myself, well, I want to take some action, because actually when you think about the behavior of some of these individuals, they're cowards. So for example, my question is, if we were applying pressure to these people, as extreme as it might sound, if we were putting those people's names out there so that they knew, hold on a minute, people are talking about me, because rather than embarrassing and shaming Emma, for example, now Emma's told 50 people that I've done this. So now the spotlight is on me. So what am I going to do? Either I'm going to have to stop acting like this, or I'm going to get caught, I'm going to get found out, because we know that if Emma goes to the police, for example, they're going to ask for action before they're going to take action themselves.
Okay, I was just going to interject there, and following up on what Sheriki was saying earlier as well. Firstly, there shouldn't be a repercussion for when a woman comes forward. And this is going back to what Sheriki was saying about our voices are not being heard. We don't have voices. We have voices, but no one wants to listen. And it's bad enough that the feds don't want to listen to us. And I'm thinking from a survivor perspective, where I had to contact the police about a situation and I was fobbed off. They said a threat to them is someone that's going to threaten you for your life, threaten your life. That's a threat to them. So they're waiting for something so drastic to happen before they take action. So that's already a problem. But the other issue is within our community, everything is normalized. I've often heard, as a young child, Caribbean family, parents, whatever, where they'll be talking about two individuals, a couple, that were together, for example. And then they would say, oh, such and such, let's say the guy's name is David. David used to beat her, David used to beat her. And it's like, they say it so casually, like it's so normalized. A bit like cheating, for example, infidelity. It's normalized in our culture. Why is that so acceptable? So these things need to change first before we even expect people from the outside, i.e. the feds, to take us seriously. It's got to start from internally. And women shouldn't be made to feel that there's going to be a repercussion when they do put their stories forward. Often enough, as we've all sat around and said earlier, there's people in our community that are doing stuff to women that should be reported to the police. I could vouch for that. And the thing is, no one, us as females, us as women, right? We're not having these conversations with other sisterins in the community. But then if we do that, these men are going to turn around and say, oh, she's the bitter girlfriend. Don't believe anything she says. She's my crazy baby mother. How often have we heard men that we dated say that about their previous partner? There's always two sides to every breakup. There's two sides to every story. So these attitudes also need to change. As sisterins, we need to be kind of looking out for one another. Like giving each other the heads up. I wish someone gave me the heads up on my previous. I could have had the heads up, but people knew certain things and it was talked about, but then it was, put under the carpet. I was speaking to a friend recently about a particular situation I was in, and he's a guy, and he said to me, "Yeah, he's done it before." Is it? Wow. he's done it before. Yeah. Did you know about blah blah blah? And I was like, yeah, I know about blah blah blah, but that wasn't the story I was given. I was told she was the crazy ex-girlfriend. But I'm learning that there was another side to the story. So within our community, we need to stop normalizing these things. Men need to be taking accountability, and the friends of these abusive men, they need to be called up. You need to any guy that knows that the brethren is doing certain things that is basically, you know, they wouldn't want their child, their daughter, to go through it. Like, you should be calling out your friend. That's where it needs to begin.
At a point, I love everything he said. Call out your friends when you see something and it doesn't feel right. It looks right. But there's also self-reflection. I was seeing in the last week people that I've seen with questionable language and questionable behaviour sharing posts about female safety and this, and I'm like, yes. Are you not a predator? Yes. Predator. Like, you're actually a predator yourself. So I'm really thankful for the guys in some of my circles, because I feel safe with them, and I'm thankful for guys like Craig and Roy. Yeah. I actually think that the majority of guys are like Craig and Roy, but there's such a percentage of guys who are perpetrating that need to, one, call out their friends, family members, as uncomfortable as that may feel. They're doing a mess, but also self-reflection. What are you doing? What have you said? Why are you forcing yourself to be in proximity of this girl who's not really that interested to you, but you want to come to her house? Why do you want to come to her house? What is it that you want? What is it that you're trying to do? When she's not really interested, but you're like, do you know what? I think I can. Why are you doing that? Question your behaviours and self-reflection, as well as call out your friend. Because the uncomfortable truth is, many people are perpetrating, but don't see themselves as such.
Yes, exactly.
And as you said about calling out their friend, also relating to that as well is we all saw the story last year unfold with Major Hype. Oh. Now, how many discussions took place in WhatsApp groups, on Facebook, on Instagram? There was even memes going around, okay? Yeah. And we had, I know some guys that was on my timeline on my Facebook saying, there's two sides to every story, right? Even after seeing all her bruises and hearing her, her story, there's two sides to every story. Yes, there is two sides to every story. But the one thing that people were saying that was really annoying me about that story was, what did she do?
Right.
As if to say,
there you go.
As if to say that
exactly.
Actually, she must have looked for those licks. She must have looked for the black eye. Yeah,
that's a mindset.
That's exactly.
She was taking man. So no wonder he did what he did. How many people? Come on now, let's be honest. On here right now, how many people saw on our timelines that there was people within our community defending it? Right?
And a woman. I had a woman defend.
Yeah, that mostly, if I'm honest, it was mostly women. It was like that episode of Boondocks where you had those women kind of gyrating at the court for R. Kelly. You know, like you just got them. True. Sis, come on, relax.
So this is where, like, with what Jem was asking, the question Jem was asking. What do we do? And I think I strongly believe, like a friend of mine who's watching this, he's just said this is a pandemic worldwide, right? Yes. And to a degree, there's two levels to this problem. I'm just thinking on a generic level now. There's the individuals who want something done. So like Cherokee said, women's voices are not heard, but actually that's on an individual level because individual people were not heard. Denise, who used to design for my band, I know her very, very well. This was heartbreaking. What happened? She wasn't listened to as an individual, okay? But guys, there's strength in numbers. And there is something within our community as well. I call it compassion fatigue. and that is, we've been working so hard, we've been doing it so hard, and then we say things like, I am tired, and then it's not up to women to speak. And I get it. I honestly get it. But guys, we have to reveal things to bring about the change that we want. We can't just, as Jem said, we can't just do business as usual and expect a different outcome. We can't keep quiet and expect a different outcome. We can't get into the malaise of, I'm tired, I'm not going to speak, but expect a different outcome. So we've got to join together. I'm sorry, Jem, give me 2 seconds.
But so for me, for example, we talk as a Black community about Black Pound Day, for example. Now, for me, I had an awful experience on the road one year with a band where I was assaulted, not by anybody in the band, but my experience led me to think about what band am I going to play with next? Because
absolutely.
As you know, we got some mass band leaders here. Now, as a female that has been attacked on the road sexually, I need to know that when I next take myself on the road, because ain't nobody going to stop me from playing my mass. I know that now that the criteria is not just, okay, I need an individual, but also I need a band where the security is so tight that I'm not going to be assaulted on the road. And if I don't get that, this band is not getting my money. No band is getting my money unless I feel like they're going to protect me when I'm on the road.
Jem, how do we police that though? Because I fully agree with you, but I've had the same experience too. I've been on the road, and I'm gonna say it was like I was in one of the islands, and it happened to me. It was another masquerader. Like they paid their money like I do. They were within the ropes like I was. I cried for like 24 hours, like because the shock of what happened to me in broad daylight in front of people was so wild that my brain even now can't process it. So how, and I'm not asking it to dismiss it. I'm asking because I want to know how we can bring it forward. Because I have a section now. How can I protect the women in my band from something that's happening that happens to you and I?
But this is what I mean. Like when you get your bag, and your goodie bag, you get your costume, you open it up. Some people are putting condoms in there. Now, I'm not going to get into that conversation, but what I'm saying is what should be in there before a condom is like a letter that explains that if you are caught doing something that you should not be doing towards any masquerader, you are instantly out of the band. You're going to be removed from the band.
We have no community register of like nothing.
You know what? I have a few ideas. So one thing that Craig and Roy were speaking about prior in regards to taking this forward collectively as a group is a lot of us have different platforms and so on and so forth. We could together draw up a document that can go on Trini Jungle Juice, Soca, all the Soca websites around the world. That states something, let's say respect our women or something, and look out for behaviors. For example, on Refuge, they've got behaviors of, certain male behaviors and stuff like that. So we could put together something like that. The other thing is we could probably put together something, for example, Jab is a traditional cultural icon in Grenada. Roy would know as well. And there was a song that had kind of words in it that stated about gang rape. And I had to tell this artist that no, don't ever sing that song again and don't ever play it. And that's what happened. He ended up taking that song down and never singing about gang rape yet. So what we could do is, as I was just saying, Naomi, as you've returned, and in ways to take this forward, Craig and Roy were speaking about certain ways, and I was thinking of many of us have different platforms. We could together put together something where it states, respect our women, look out for these types of behavior, advice what men can do, women can do, and so on and so forth. With the mass band.
Percussion and stuff. If you don't do what happens, and it has to be actionable.
Exactly. And another thing for mass bands, so I have a jab band in Grenada, I am armed in my band. So with me, I'm an armed individual. We have, we do have undercover police as well that go through the band. And what we are doing is we are increasing security and so on forth, because a lot of the bands get big and there's a huge area where it just spreads. And from one side to the camera to the other, it's just thick of people. And we are, it is fun. But what we try to do is try to get ahead of what could happen. And so myself, other bands, and with the police, we work together in regards to how we can protect persons. But for me, I'm a band leader. Myself, my team, we are there. I am always armed. You would see me in a bodysuit. You wouldn't know I have a weapon on me, but trust me, I would throw. And it's happened before where one band was passing me and someone was fighting, and I told my band to stop, let them pass fighting, and we went up. But you have to have a repercussion, as you say, throw them out of the band, or if there's an undercover police there, or a policeman should be there and just arrest them right away,
Are you and your guns available next Bank Holiday weekend?
With me, I don't actually use a firearm. Just funny, I don't use a firearm. I won't say what I use, because I don't think it's technically legal. But there was a time when someone tried to.
They didn't say it.
Hey, yeah, it won't. Like they thought it was water from the back of a truck, and I pulled this thing, and everyone was like, "Oh my god!" They're like, "You're gonna kill me for water," and I was like, "That's not water, and you better put it back." So what happens is, I think every band has a duty of care. It's like with Gem's workplace, you have a duty of care to ensure that everybody is safe. They're in an environment where they are protected. So that is something that band leaders should do, whether you're a man or a woman. And again, the DJ, you have the DJ. Again, the DJ could read out something. We can have something where for mass bands, you read this out as they're reading out sponsors. Some people can sing it out if they want, something like that.
What Cherokee said in the Notting Hill Carnival, we did this years and years ago when I was the chair of the DJ Association. I wrote a code of conduct for DJs on the road and for trucks. And that's where scaffolding came in. That's where really the health and safety of the masqueraders and everyone associated with a band came in. Prior to that, there was absolute madness and carnage, right? There was one time this guy got electrocuted on a truck and literally flew off the truck, right? Yeah, exactly. There was some madness going on. But what we did back then is we exposed all that horrible behavior, all that nasty culture of cutting corners and all that kind of stuff. And look what we have today. We have floats that are properly regulated, and people are now safer on the floats. I mean, there was a year one guy's scaffolding collapsed and all kind of madness took place, right? We haven't heard about that in a long time, which is why I'm saying, let's not allow fatigue to get in, and let's use our collective voice to make sure that we expose all this horrid behavior within the culture. And let us be prepared. This culture is not going to change overnight, because as Craig pointed out and Cherokee pointed out, it's in the very songs that we're using to entertain ourselves, right? I was interviewed a few years ago on a radio station in Grenada, and I asked a simple question. Listen to all the songs that have come out. How many are celebrating how beautiful our women are? And I stopped and waited. How many are celebrating how beautiful? God's made our women to look amazing, right? With melanin skin. How many songs celebrate without vulgarity, without over-sexualization? How many just celebrate how beautiful our women are, right? You may be able to count it on one hand, maybe two, okay? And that's, and if you wanna find somewhere to start, is that we need a campaign to educate these soca artists. Come on, every year you're joking. I mean, when are you gonna love? When are you gonna marry? When are you gonna talk about your children, right? When are you gonna talk about love and happiness and peace and joy and all those great things in life, right? Every year we got to hear you talking about who you joke and who you want to joke. And it's maybe I'm getting a bit too old, right? But
No, you're on the right point.
I find the culture oppressive, right? And then when you have like bright sparks, like somebody sings a song, and I actually asked this question as well. Some of the songs that we're going to be singing in the next 20 years, are they about joke, or are they about actual stuff that people can hold on to, right? And you know, the presenter was like, actually, you got a point, you know. I'm like, and Scrante in Trinidad said it well. He called it throwaway lyrics, right? Throwaway lyrics. That's how he called it. It's just rubbish, because after and that's why even when you look, the DJs, they play 5 seconds of the tune and then cut it and gone on to the next one, because it's all rubbish. Sorry to say it like that, but it's true, because they're not speaking about anything proper. So guys, I think it's about a campaign, and we need to be ready and prepared. It's for the long haul. It's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to just fix. It may fix for one female here, one female there immediately, because the idiot who's being an idiot might think, oh crap, I can't get away with that again. So the opportunists. But we need to begin a campaign to rid this, because guys, when we begin this, it's not just going to be for the feds. This has to go to the homes, because there's some madness taking place in homes up and down the islands, right? Every single day of the year. And in England right here now, there are some people who are suffering in silence. There's some women who they look at you and they're communicating through their eyes, I need help. So let us be prepared that you know, the Fet is just one area. The home, which is where I started, the home is another area. And my final point on this is I mentor boys, I mentor young boys. And some of the things that I listen to from these boys are shocking. And these boys are 12, 11, 13. It is shocking. And I have to ask the question, where are these children? Because they are children. They're not of age. They can't go to a vet by themselves. They can't go and wind up on anybody. Where are these children learning these things from? You know? And we really, really, really have to, as part of that multi-layered campaign, look at the home, look at uncles. This whole, you know, reinforcing, yeah, that's my boy. You know, all that sort of culture, we need to look at all of these things and expose all of this. You know, sorry, I can go on, but I think it's a campaign to expose. It has to be exposed, guys. And we have to be prepared to just go the long haul and expose this crowd.
Yeah.
To extend
I think you're so right. And just one thing that I wanted to comment on, because we were talking about the music, and I think you're right. The majority of the music that, you know, we listen to, but I do have to shout out Teddyson John, and anybody that knows me would have known that I accosted him on the road at Notting Hill Carnival, and funnily enough, that it kind of he had a video of it, because for me it's so refreshing to have somebody who is talking about, you know, leaving unhealthy toxic relationships and who celebrate, like, for me, his music really does touch my soul, and for me, it reminds me of Ahsoka that we used to, you know, really kind of love. And it is that thing about, we want more of that. We want to celebrate people like him who are putting our culture out there, and who are talking about beauty, and who are talking about healthy relationships, and, you know, who are encouraging people within the community to uplift themselves. And I think that is something that we want more of, you know.
To extend from both of what you're saying, and I actually love Teddyson John myself. So yeah, that's the first person I thought of when you said, like, what recent music actually have people love themselves or actually love women, is pretty much him, and his performances are kind of the same as well. To extend from what you're saying, Roy, yeah, it's basically a campaign that is on multiple fronts, wherever our strengths kind of lie. I only just kind of saw some of my brothers yesterday, and I literally asked them as final thing, which was aside from our meeting, was to ask them if they wanted to do a video campaign of not necessarily attacking men, but basically saying what men should be doing and how they should be holding themselves accountable, and how they treat women and how they treat their daughters, how they treat outsiders, everything like that as well. So ideally what I want to do is bring all of those men and maybe any others who are interested, as many as possible, to basically do a video campaign and use our resources to be able to create something and start putting it out. And once we start, it can kind of just go on from there. It can go into all the stuff that's been mentioned, from leaflets, code of conduct, better security, which is basically band leaders taking a bit of a hit to say, oh, we want to keep our women protected.
Yeah.
Maybe putting together a mission statement for bands or cross carnival bands, etc. Again, campaigns for more about how would you approach conversations within the family on targeting on like uncles' behavior, fathers' behavior, sons, nephews, older conversations as well. One of the things that we did touch on was the fact that women may not be heard, but you probably are amazing listeners for other women, for example. So if there is a group that's put together, other women will be very more willing to know that there's a woman on the other side to listen and who have actually experienced these same things as well. So you will be their listeners basically, and men can basically be the ones who are actually taking a bit more action. We probably know just as many men as we know women in our lives start to basically reach out to men who actually want to be a part of this campaign and start to target this. Again, when they start to hear these invites about being part of these campaigns, they're going to have to self-reflect and then also realize, oh, I can't be a part of this campaign and be the face of it, for example. I don't want people to be behind the cameras with certain things. I want their face to be in front of it, and for them to know that when they do go out, they'll realize, oh, you're that person. So then they have a feeling that, one second, I'm representing something. I can't necessarily have a bad behavior, because they're going to be ones that, as we know, they repost stuff and they're predators. But at that moment, people can change and they can self-reflect and be like, actually, this is not actually the right way to go about things. I represent something a bit bigger than I am, and I should have a bit more discipline or self-control around it. So I would love to do that. And Roy, I actually do a few workshops now that people have been allowing me to get into, and it's great that you do workshops. So it's great for us to be able to kind of collaborate and talk to more boys and more men. Again, I've done modeling, I've done carnival band modeling, I've done the pageantry, etc. I've done a lot of things that people will look up to and think, oh, how did you get there and how did you do that? One of the things that I spoke to my brothers about yesterday was the fact that we basically want to create like a investment group, but the main part about it is that we want to document our journey as to what type of people did we have to be to get to where we are in our lives. And part of that is the respect. A lot of these men are married. A lot of these men have kids. A lot of these men have multiple nieces, or they're godfathers for multiple people, etc. So it's a point about showing them. The point right now, we most of the case when we put stuff on social media, we're fighting for people's attention. So one of the things is that you kind of give them the attention that they want, which is maybe they want to know about how did a soca artist come up, for example, or how did an entrepreneur make it to the top. But in between that, if you're part of the campaign, you can also be saying, well, how I treated people was a big part about it. How I had self-control was a big part about it. It's kind of like a small ingrained part. I find it's about the behavior, and we have to start targeting men and boys' behavior from a very young age, and talking to them about things they want to hear, and then ingraining the fact that when you hold a certain level of accountability, discipline, and self-control, you will get to those places you want in your life and not end up in prison, for example, or end up on a pedophilia list, for example, or end up being somebody that women want to avoid. In that case, it's all a part of it. It's not like, oh, I can have everything and then also have the really bad behavior. No, it actually comes all in one. You then have to have control, and that's just a part that I believe in.
And
so yeah, I believe. Go ahead.
The thing about what you're saying, Craig, is that we have these men in our community, like yourself, like Roy. And I know Roy said he does some mentoring. Now, for me, as I said, I'm a parent and I also work in a school, and I'm quite aware of this divide, almost this invisible divide between home and school that can sometimes be there, where parents teach their children a certain way and school might have a different view. And a lot of the time you often hear conversations where parents don't feel confident in the idea of schools teaching their children how to be. And sometimes you have schools where they're not culturally competent enough to actually be in a position to be telling young people how they should act, because they're not taking into account where they're coming from, their lived experiences. And actually, as any, whether you're young or old, when people are talking at you about things that maybe directly affect you, you will switch off. So say, for example, if you come from a household where they're homophobic, and then you go into an RSE lesson and they're telling you that being in a healthy relationship might look like two men, you immediately are going to switch off, and then that's the end of the conversation, and that's the end of your engagement with what the school has to say about healthy relationships. So for me, one of the most valuable things that I have experienced in my school was I brought in a mentoring company called Mentivity, and you know, the three people who run that place are all now close personal friends of mine, who I know if I was ever in trouble, they would come up and have my back. Like three upstanding Black, Caribbean, British men who live in a way that means that they win the support and respect of young people. And it's kind of this idea about how do we put young people in communication with people like that, knowing that of course there is a cost, because what we're not doing in 2021 is asking Black people to continue working for free. Like that's not what we're doing, and you know, this is a service. But how do we make it so that where we have young people who are disengaged, who are doing the wrong thing, who are thinking the wrong ways, who would probably benefit from this type of mentoring, this type of intervention, how do we get it to them? You know, how do we do that?
That's actually a good question. And you're really right about that. There's a part where people, when you start to have what's the stance, like this is the right way and this is the only way, and your life is completely different to theirs, people just, this is why it's so hard to, this is why I don't do as Mr. Positive, top 5 things to stay positive in the day. I say, this is what I did to stay positive, and I hope that my story, one person will attach to it. Then you have multiple faces that will say the same thing in their way, and then they would attach to it. So again, I think it's a more part about numbers, which is why it's more of a campaign. Numbers is one of the key things as to getting people's, this is my story, and this is how I behave, or how I react, or how I do things. And hopefully that along the line, somebody will attach to it. And the other part about where you're saying, how do we get it across? That's a really big question. And I actually honestly don't know. And I do work with a few of my brothers who basically do work with schools, alumni as well, where they come back, etc. And he also works with a lot of the council around funding, especially for projects such as these as well. So I would be willing to kind of, if we don't have the answer, then we start to put it out to as many people as possible. We start the campaign and start saying, we want to know the answers. Which ways do you think would be the best way we get to your kids? For example, would you love information? Would you want it to be given to you as a parent, passed it on to your kid, passed through the school, passed on to the kid? Or do we feel that the kids because again, kids still have a level of code of conduct that they have to follow by. A lot of the things are online these days. I had a diary, which one of the first pages is how you behave, etc. Maybe part of that page ends up being who do you speak to when certain things are not going in the right way, or who do you speak to for mentorship, etc. Again, this is a lot of based on schools taking on some of these services as well, but we can actually just start to ask parents as well. And I think the whole point is, if we don't know, just take the stance of we don't know and start to ask as many people as possible and gather the information. And sometimes we'll get directed in a place we didn't even realize, and that is the way that we can start to go. And again, it's still something that becomes, maybe there's one pillar here, this works great for this community, this works great for this age, this works great for this part of the school. Maybe East London is more receptive than to West London, for example. So yeah, we just start it out. Just start, and then we can actually start asking the questions and do the things that we believe is right, and then the things that we are unsure if it's going to be right or wrong, start to put out the questions. Again, because it's not a competition as to who's doing it the best, we can just be in the case of we actually don't know, and we love for you guys to help us out. The same way with all the comments on YouTube, etc. People are giving their part and saying what they agree with, what what they feel like is the right way to go. I think this is a let's start, and then we can really figure it out from there. Just like soca artists started, and we end up to joking, and people like it, you know.
Yeah.
Guys, I just want to quickly say, I just want to because I'm gonna go in a second. My back's hurting. But I just want to say thank you, and it's been amazing to be part of this. There's a few times I wanted to chime in, but as soon as I chimed in, someone else said what I wanted to say. So I literally think it's been amazing. I think I'm going to leave it on a note that I think as people, we need to just have uncomfortable conversations with family, with friends, with young people. And I think it's also lack of education as well. I don't even think if you grow up in a certain way, in a certain environment with people act in a certain way, you may not know something is wrong or may be viewed a certain way to someone else, as silly as that may sound and ignorant. But some people genuinely may not have a clue because that's how they've seen women be treated in their household or in their family and things like that. So I think everything really does stem from home. Of course, there's great upbringings which makes a difference, but there's people that don't know any better, you know. So I think we should literally just keep pushing, keep talking, and we must find a solution somewhere. And whatever campaign we choose to do, I'll definitely be down and part of. And I just want to say thank you to everyone for being so open, honest, sharing your stories. Some things weren't always comfortable that people said, you know, some things were very triggering, I know for me. But I'm grateful, and I just thank all of you for coming together to talk today.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But you guys.
Thank
care.
Thank you for being part of it.
As we're
Thank
kind of getting to the end of the conversation, there is one other thing that I kind of wanted to ask people about, and that was almost a kind of completely separate thing that you almost don't want to have the same conversation, but it kind of is the same conversation, and that's this idea around the victims, the people who have lost their lives at the hands of these people, and how do we ensure that we keep their memory alive in a way that is not triggering for their loved ones who are obviously already going through it? How do we ensure that people remember their names? How do we ensure that we do the best that we can to support those who have been left behind and who are probably struggling to separate the happy memories with the hideous ending? Like what can we do as a community to uplift those people and to have fitting memorials for the individuals? I don't know, what are people's thoughts about that?
I think one of the first things is consent from the families and friends, like the really close family and friends. Are they comfortable with us starting an initiative or a foundation in their name? It might be that they're not. But something that has the same premise, the same process, or the same initiative, but just doesn't carry their name, we need to get their consent. I think I've seen so much power in everybody's words today, male or female, from every respect, everybody in this forum today. It feels like we've found an opportunity and a gap where we need to do something. And I think we need to start setting the boundaries, but the foundations of what would we like to see and what's realistic as well. We're not going to change the whole world in a day. We're not going to change the whole world in 10 years. But what can we do is an incremental step forward? And in an incremental step forward, to me, is a success, to be honest with you. Can we do that? What does that look like? And start building that as a plan with time frames as well, to answer your question.
I had... Oh, go on, Craig.
Yeah, so just to say same with what Em said, I guess I'm not too sure the best way. Like, it's such a tough situation, and again, how some of these situations were dealt with. Some families are just really in a bad place, and some want their names to be continued, some don't. So yeah, consent would be great if we could probably find ways that we can get in contact, but also find ways that we think is the best fit into remember them. If it's even just the campaign, having a website and it has all the names of the people that we do know that's happened in the last few years and keep adding to it, unfortunately from years back, and things that carry on as well. If that's enough, or if there's other ways that we can add on to it, or even again ask them what do they think as well. This is a large kind of project, a large campaign, but one that actually does have a massive standpoint for us, and is something that would kind of live beyond us as well after that as well. So I guess just start it and then we will work it out from there onwards.
can I just add one point? I think we need a safe space with no judgment as well. So whether you are on the receiving end and you're unfortunately like a victim or somebody on the receiving end of abuse or victimization, but what if, and it's really uncomfortable, and you're somebody that's done something but you're not sure about, you know, your behaviours, or you want to learn to do better. We just like a safe space where people can come and talk. I think that would be a step forward that might be quite helpful, and it will be very uncomfortable. You'll need to safeguard the people running that, as well as the people that are coming to you. And I don't really know what that would look like, being honest, but I think that could be a step forward. But it'll be very uncomfortable. That I can see, but you need that.
I think we need to signpost, because we can't do everything. So there'll be experts associated with, there's people that we know that do all sorts, so we can signpost people. So I use a phrase, let's not eat the elephant in one bite, right? And so let's take it in small chunks and eat that. But we need to be clear about what we want to accomplish. And what we want to accomplish is a change of culture, right? And within that, we know we need to change culture in boys. We need to change the whole plethora of things. But essentially, we're starting a movement, a campaign to change the culture. And we've got to be very clear that's what we're doing, because there is going to be pushback. There's going to be people who's going to say, well, so-and-so is doing X and so-and-so is doing Y, and why don't you just go to the police? So let's be prepared for what we're doing. It is a campaign to change the culture, and within that, let's signpost people. So Jem, you came up with a fantastic idea of this mentoring company. There's an organization called 100 Black Men, and they're doing amazing, absolutely amazing work. There's another organization in the States that is doing crazy work. They partner with men going into schools for Father's Evening and Parents' Evening. The boys who don't have fathers, these men will go in. So we need to signpost with these organizations, so that we're not trying to do everything for everybody. There's organizations out there that's doing amazing work. So let's signpost to all those guys. But let's be clear that we're changing culture. We're exposing this horrid culture, because we've got these people in our families, right? Let's be honest, a lot of these people are in our families, and we have to expose them. And as Dom said, we also need to be mindful that a lot of these people, so the opportunists, need to be given an opportunity to have that safe space to be able to reflect on their behaviors and make a decision to change, you know, and actively be supported in that. And then we drive out that hardcore madness out of this wider space that we have. So I'm just put my strategic hat on and just thinking about how this works, that essentially we've got to come and command a space. And it means we're going to have to lobby the DJs, lobby schools, lobby promoters, lobby soccer artists. We have to lobby all these people to say, stop, you know, stop promoting this abuse of women, stop promoting misogyny, stop promoting dominance and all that madness. Just stop promoting it and start promoting healthy behaviors that our children our grandchildren, children can come into this world and find that space, you know, and then drive and be very, very open about it. We're driving out this horrid behavior.
I've got a point as well. If I'm not in the HR field, but if you've got any familiarity with them, they've got a standard called investing in people, and it's like, you know, the go-to standard. You are an investing in people, you're safeguarding your people. It should, and it's like a moniker to have. So I would almost want it to be like what I would kind of envision it to be. Like if you're a mass band, if you are a entity in the Caribbean soccer field, whatever that looks like, that you can have as much as you've got your sponsor or you've got Eventbrite or you've got whatever image, you've got this stance, whatever that looks like, you've got invested in women, whatever. I'm just making this up as I go along. That is actually like a goal to have, that you're looking to have this level of integrity for your people. I want it to almost be something that's like aspirational, like, and
celebrated.
Yeah, does it make sense?
I understand what you mean. It's like a badge of honor to say that you were approved by this campaign or this group, and
it can be revoked. That badge can be revoked.
That would be good. And then what the women will do is actually they'll probably go through the campaign website to find safe bands that have been approved or been pre-checked, or if you want to apply, then we will do it, etc. Yeah. So I agree. That's actually a really good way to do it.
No accountability. You've got no accountability if you don't get your costume. You've got no accountability if your band is a bit skewing. You've got nothing. And you spend
Roy,
so much money.
to extend from what you're saying, Roy, we can't do everything. I would personally say for my part, I will be doing the campaign with a few of my brothers anyway, so I'll probably reach out to you guys if there's any men that you would like to probably get introduced. I'll put something together and then reach out to you guys as to, is there any men you want to put up or ask if they want to get involved? I don't know how many just as yet, but my brothers basically said they were willing to use their services to kind of get this video recorded, get this put together, and at least just start to get something out, and even have these conversations among other men as well. Again, like all the stuff that's been happening, there's a lot of reposts, etc. A lot of conversations start getting kicked up, and it's always with women. And I actually want to be the person that kicks it off among men as well. We did a podcast about this with Sarah as well. And again, it's just all of us are in the same place, and we felt the same way just afterwards. Unfortunately, I didn't do a campaign that time, but this is again, and it's getting a bit ridiculous from that time to now. It's crazy. So I'll personally be doing the campaign anyway, and I'll be happy to reach out to you guys if you have any other men that would probably want to get involved and find a way to kind of share their parts to what they think men should be doing and how they should be acting.
Great.
Well, I think we've all said what we're going to do, and it's just about putting our money where our mouth is, isn't it? I think I just wanted to kind of end by just thanking everybody to take the time to talk about something that is so difficult to discuss. We know already that there will be people who watch this who will probably have switched off because it was a little bit close to the bone. And I think it is that big piece of work about slowly chipping away at those around those individuals rather than trying to directly get at those individuals, because you're just not going to get through with that. And I do think that, again, it's just about ensuring that we take action so that we don't have to continue hashtagging women who have lost their lives or just lost their confidence or just lost their joy because they've been mistreated by a male and they're a victim of violence. I don't know if there's anybody else who wants to say anything.
Can I just add two things, actually? It's reading from websites, so Refuge and Samaritan. So just in case there's anybody watching, listening, and that you are in let's say a domestic abuse situation, there is a national helpline that you can contact, which is 0808 2000 247. You can actually click something, I'm just on the website, and you could actually click something where it says escape hide website. So you could access that website discreetly. Also Samaritans, you can call for free 116 123. So
I think just to add to that, Sister Space, I don't know if some of you guys have heard of them, but they're doing some great work for people in our community, for Black and Brown people. I did invite them to come and have a chat with us today, but they're a bit tied up and it's a bit short notice. So hopefully, if there is another part 2 to this conversation, then yeah, hopefully it's imperative. They have to be a part of that conversation, I think. But yeah, Sister Space, I'll try and put the details down in the comments. for anyone that may need their assistance. So yeah, I just wanted to point that out. And also just on that note as well, just to say that if anyone is not so much if someone's in a situation, but I just feel like we need to tackle not so much naming and shaming individuals. I mean, essentially that's what it would be. I'm going to call them out. But I feel like we need to, as women, we need to be having these conversations confidently. If we know someone within our community that is in a particular way, basically. I mean, you just wouldn't, if for example, if someone assaulted or raped someone within our community and is in the person that did it, the perpetrator is within the community, I'm sure that they will be called out. So why is it different when it is physical abuse?
I mean,
that needs to change.
You know what? It's one of those things where it is going to be about being brave, isn't it? Because I remember a situation, because Emma and I are friends, and I remember a situation where Emma had posted a picture with somebody who assaulted me, and I remember seeing the picture and thinking to myself, I hope she's not involved with that guy, because and it took me a good hour to get the courage, and I didn't call her because I was so stressed about it. I sent her a voice note and I said to her, Ems, what's up with you and this guy? And she said, oh, it's just a picture, why? And then it all came out, and we had that sisterhood, we were able to do that. But we do need to get to a point where if we kind of see somebody who we just know, because that's how the scene is, people, you don't necessarily know them, that we don't feel like we're going to get shut down, or it's going to be more aggravation for us because now it's, she's talking your name.
Uncomfortable conversation. You said something to me earlier. I was mentioning the guy that's on the Soca scene and how he's had repeated behaviours, and then we've got this guy who's done the same to you. We're both uncomfortable to play their name. And I've told some people, and some people perspective, and some are just being dismissive. But ultimately, I don't feel comfortable. I feel like I'll be judged even though I haven't done anything, and you're being the same as myself.
Yeah.
I'm saying the same. Why do you and I, as professional, confident, articulate women who are very vocal, not comfortable saying how we feel about it?
Because subconsciously, that's how we've been brought up. Subconsciously, it's in there that as a woman, you are not to say anything, you're not to speak in fear of repercussion. And that whole cultural mindset needs to shift amongst men who feel they're entitled to be able to do what they do, and amongst women who feel that they can't speak up for fear of not being believed, or they don't want to rock the boat if it's their marital home, their partner may be the main breadwinner, or there may be a woman doesn't want to be seen as, I don't have a man. They'd rather put up with the crap than as opposed to try and get themselves out of the situation.
And Marsha, as like a masquerader, obviously we've all got our lives outside of carnival, but one thing that's been pointed out to me, they like a justification for the objectification. So it would be like, making all these sexual memes and all these things. So, like, why wouldn't he come and talk to you like that? Or I'm like, so what if I make a joke about whatever? That doesn't mean you can engage with me. So what if I'm busty and I've got a post and I've got an Instagram post? That doesn't mean that you have any the right entitlement to engage with me. So you have all of that as well being said to you, that you're not presenting yourself in a way that should be respectful.
Yeah, that's what they say.
Be safeguarding you or being actively listening that are saying these things to you. It's so uncomfortable. It's really bad. It's so ingrained.
It's like you don't wear this.
Guys, it's mad out there because I mean, I was on Instagram the other day, and this meme turned up, which if it was not a cartoon meme, it would have been shut down like immediately by the platform. And this thing was so vulgar. I was saying to Nee that immediately I just unfollowed the person because it is crazy. Yeah. And this is made all so complicated because some people are doing this stuff to get attention and they don't appreciate they're adding to the culture of misogyny and all that madness that's going on. And so we're back to the thing where I'd say is let's be prepared and understand the mountain that we're climbing with this, starting this culture, because also it's got. I mean, a friend of mine just he's watching this and he just posted. He says, "Roy, you haven't even talked about fatherlessness." And it's fatherlessness in the sense of not that there isn't a man around, there isn't a man who's a father around who can actually take these young guys and show them that behavior is completely wrong. Help them to recognize toxic masculinity and help them to understand that's not how you're supposed to be, and understand where that comes from. So there's just, this thing is just so complicated. And then you've got the flip side where I was basically called a soft man because I wouldn't manhandle somebody, right? And so this thing is so mad and mental that, in my band as well, this guy exposed himself. I kicked him out. He was a popular guy. So all his friends were in my face saying to me, "You can't get rid of him." And I'm like, well, sorry, he's out. And so this takes a strength. It takes a strength of character to stand up. And we've got to be prepared to not back down to this madness. We may not, be violent towards people. We may have to fight and run away sometimes to live to fight another day, but we have to be determined that we will win this. It's going to take a while, but we'll win it. And we have to start every single day. And sometimes we might get a knockback, something might happen that we don't like, but let's dust ourselves off and let's go again, because guys, this is massive. This thing is huge, what we're trying to do, changing the culture. And it's not something that we can click our fingers and all of a sudden, all of the guys who are behaving like idiots are going to say, "Oh, right, okay."
Yeah.
It is that thing that you said, though, about friends not holding their friends to account. They've got the energy to be telling you can't kick him out of the band. It's like we've seen people with the energy to act fools in the supermarket for toilet paper and queues for petrol, but where it comes to protecting women, all of a sudden they're quiet,
Absolutely.
It is that thing about how do we activate that same energy that you've got for the trivial things for something this big?
Entitlement, and men see it's a lack of reward. They don't see what the end goal is, for example. So basically, as I was saying, we said from the beginning, is basically putting more representation as to showing men what does it mean, what happens to you basically when you are able to withhold this throughout your life. Or, for example, as Emma had a great idea of kind of stamping certain bands that say, we approve of, this is our code of conduct, we have done things in place to protect our women. And then eventually, after a few years go by, the only carnival bands that have that, women will go to, because they know they're protected, they know that they're safe. If they don't have
That's
it, or
a
they will
brilliant
disprove.
idea, Emma. It's absolutely brilliant.
So I think
I love that, babe.
discipline.
They're gonna follow through now.
It's discipline, and it's just a lack of self-reward. So of course the toiletry thing is a fear that's triggered. They think they're gonna get toilet paper. Now they have like toilet paper stacked up to their ceilings. They're feeling good. When they have the petrol, they have petrol in their tank on top of their car. They feel good. By the time that they protect women, they're like, well, that means I don't get my way, I lose my body, I like all these other things. But they're not realizing, well, you will get called out, for example. That's one of the things, you will get called out. These other campaigns of men that have made it really far in life are showing how to respect women, etc. And there are a lot of people that are doing that now as well. So how do you hold yourself as a man as well? So again, there's a lot of different angles we have to take, and it's going to be a long journey. But again, it's a journey that's worth doing. And this is the reason why I even get involved in these podcasts or these talks, etc. Is to keep talking about these kind of things and keep having these transparent conversations, and also pulling up any behavior I've had or other men. When I had my podcast, we, as some of my friends, we literally talked about when we was at school. What kind of behavior did we have at school? What kind of behavior did we have at college? When certain things happened, etc. What kind of things did we have on when it was on MSN days, for example? And then realizing, yeah, we did actually contribute to that culture. We did have certain memes that we posted. Me on Instagram, I had to do like a certain cleanser of my Instagram because certain pages they start to get funny, but then they start to post things which are super inappropriate, or they just shouldn't be a joke made out of, or etc. These are like small behaviors, but again, the key part about it is just self-reflection. Nobody wants to be judged. Nobody wants to shame. Nobody wants the finger pointed at them. But the more that you see it being pointed at other people, the more you see the knowledge passed on, the men will start to begin to self-reflect and make their own decisions. My friend's exposed himself. He's getting kicked out of the band. You know what? He deserves it. I just gonna have to enjoy myself and leave him to it, for example. And then if he continues or if he doesn't see there's something wrong, I should really question that. So these are the small things that we have to, a lot of actions that will be taken, but it will have an effect over time. All of it is about just bringing more awareness. Genuinely, as Edie said, some people genuinely don't know. They only saw bad behavior. They only saw, I went to a boys' school. There was loads of times when they're speaking about women, they're not talking about loving women, etc. They're talking about basically, oh, have you lost your virginity yet? Have you done this yet, etc. It's like an object in a sense. So again, that's stuff like when you get out into the open world, you don't realize, oh, 1 second, you're not supposed to see them as objects. They're supposed to be something that is respected and seen. But I had a great mother. I had great aunties. I have regular conversations with my parents, but they're like literally talking about school and certain things that you realize, 1 second, I can't talk about that because that's shameful. So it's like self-reflection. It's a lot of that. And unfortunately, the world, Snapchat, TikTok, YouTube, loads of stuff is really pulling away our attention. So we don't spend time in our head thinking about what do we do and how do we hold ourselves. But women have to do that because when they're heartbroken or abused or they have to avoid people, they have to have social anxiety. There's so many cases that they just have to be in their head. And that's all they can do. And men just brush it off. And I think that's, again, it's a version of changing the culture. Roy being able to speak to other boys. At that moment, some of these boys will never have the questions asked to them that Roy will ask them, ever. And at that moment, they get to reflect and make a decision. So I think, yeah, once we start this, we'll start to bring people the opportunity to even have a level of self-awareness and even begin to have the knowledge to realize, oh yeah, that's not right. I did it in the Caribbean. I had a fatherhood workshop in the UK, one in the Caribbean, because men kill themselves the most in suicide and depression, for example. When we did it in the Caribbean, you would imagine having a fatherhood workshop where these men had to talk about them being fathers, having fathers, or not being fathers, etc. You would never imagine the things that they go through their head is even worse than in the UK. They were like, now that I haven't been able to be a good partner to my wife or to whoever it is, I can't be in my child's life. So now if a stepdad comes in, I don't know if he's going to abuse her. I don't know if I can protect her. If I don't know if something like happens when she goes out, I will know when she's doing because I'm not in her life anymore. And you know what? I never had a father. I never had a father that told me he loved me. I never had a father in general. One of them had a fight with their father at 40, 50 years old. He's 40 or 50 and he's having a physical fight with his father. To this day, he's never had a father. But at that moment, when I asked them those questions and they joined that workshop, they said they've never, ever had to think about it before. Some of these guys were either in their 40s or 50s already, and they've never had to think about, why am I the way I am? Why am I not in my child's life? Why am I not able to protect my daughters? Why am I not able to? They didn't thought about that. So once we can begin to have these conversations, start to normalize those conversations, stop normalizing the jokes, oh, it's okay, oh yeah, you know what uncle's like, and start normalizing, you know what, let's start having these therapeutic conversations. Let's start having these conversations to why we're doing this, and etc. And we'll start to make a difference.
Break the cycle.
That is good. Do you know, I wanted to just add for Ems and for Jem, if you guys ever needed to speak to anyone, you've got myself, Marsha, Craig, Roy, and Nye. So if you ever want to speak about anything, especially with Jem, with your workplace, they've got a duty of care. That should be, someone said that in the comments, should be a grievance thing. And if they don't, then that goes to employment tribunal, you know? So that shouldn't be dealt with lightly. And Ems, anything, you could, any one of us or all of us, you can speak to. Yeah.
I won't say too much.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you everybody, and we'll be in touch offline with putting together our action plan. So I hope this has been useful for people this evening, and everybody enjoy the rest of your night.
Indeed. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye.